Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. Morning. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, on Missoula Real Estate Today. It's always cool when I get to visit with a good friend here on the show. Scott Arnold, Scott the Painter. Those of you who listen to our Friday hunting and fishing show, of course, we're on hiatus right now until the first Friday of March. But Scott the Painter, Scott Arnold, is an integral part of that. Helps out with the Montana Outdoor Radio Show on Saturdays. And he's Scott Arnold Painting. Welcome back.
Thanks, Danny. It's good to be here.
I knew you weren't outside anymore, so I figured...
Nope, I'm not outside anymore.
This was a good time to invite you back. What was it about the painting business all those years ago made you decide it was the path you wanted to follow?
Well, my dad was into like remodeling, purchasing stuff around the university, remodeling it and turning it into apartment complexes. So we kind of... And he was always in the carpenter construction trade. He was a real estate guy for years, But so we just kind of got into that. And then my wife and I left here in 79. We went to California, and I was in the restaurant business for years there. And a guy that I needed some side work, make a little extra money. We had a baby on the way. So he put me to work helping him out. And he was a painting contractor and did some light remodeling. So I was kind of learning the painting end of it. But I was also his, kind of his foreman guy for the minor remodeling stuff he was doing because he knew I had a background there. And then we came back to Montana in 86, and I went to work. I was working at the Heidel House. For those of you, that was a while back.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I was a member of Stein Club.
You were a Stein Clubber, yeah. Yeah, well, I worked for Bill in the 70s also before we left. But I came back, went to work for Bill, and that went for a while, and then I decided to move on, and some friends of mine had decided they were going to start building houses, and they knew I had a painting background, so that's how I did a house or two for them, and then it just kind of took off from there, and more than anything, it came down to, the money end of it. It was pretty tough making money in the restaurant business in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
So...
All right, so it all worked out good. Yeah. Well, for the purposes, you've been on the show a time or two, but not this time of year. For the purpose of a real estate show, we are focusing on interior house painting this time of year, of course. When did you have to put the exterior division away for the season?
Well, this year was, usually we do around the 10th of November is kind of our cutoff, but we had that cold snap kind of late October, at the end of October, right before that, so... We kind of tied everything up and said, yeah, we're pretty much done. We've had a few days we could have done some work, but iffy weather. I'm just so anal about making sure I don't get callbacks because there's money to do it one time. There's never any money to come back and do it a second time.
Right.
So we just kind of wrapped it up, and I got about 2 days on the one job we tied up. So it's just. That'll be on the first part of the list, first thing we do, and that'll take a couple days, and then we're rolling right into our springtime exterior season.
What are some of the keys to being a good house painter inside and out? Some of the secrets, in case I want to, I'm thinking about changing careers, and I'm looking into that.
You have to.
You've horned in on the broadcast yet. It's fair.
So if you want to roll in and help me out, there we go.
Fair is fair. I think.
There you go.
What are some of the keys to that?
You got to learn to be patient, which is something I wasn't very good at in the beginning. You have to have an eye for detail.
Yeah.
When I first started out, we have a saying that's kind of a blow and go, get her done and move on to the next project. And that came back to haunt me a few times. Never in a paint failure or anything. Just some. It was a growing process. Especially when we're doing some of the pre-sold custom homes. The customers get a little more particular, and it's kind of so you have to kind of slow. Basically, it's slow down and take your time and just kind of keep an eye on what you're doing. So. There's stuff you can do, you can roll through, and then you get down to the fine detail work, you really got to detail it out.
Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Scott Arnold, owner of Scott Arnold Painting, and does a lot of work in, of course, Missoula County and Ravalli County, does a lot of Bitter at Missoula stuff. And you are not, of course, an interior designer or interior decorator, but I'm sure you're often asked your opinion on color schemes and how do you diplomatically handle that? You probably, I just said, well, you're not a decorator or designer or anything, but you probably had to, develop that skill over the years.
I have kind of had to develop that skill over the years, yeah. When you, especially like I say, when you get into a spec house that a builder's building to sell after it's completed, it's pretty cut and dry. They have their color scheme picked out, and it's do it, and basically the homeowner that purchased it is what they is what they get.
Yeah.
You get into more custom homes, pre-sold homes. You have to have a bit of tact because you're dealing with not only a builder, but you're dealing with a homeowner. And so you have to be able to bridge that gap between the two. And dealing with the homeowners, sometimes their ideas are a little different than mine. I get asked a lot of times what I think of color schemes. My first thing is I'm a tough guy to ask that question because I prefer cool colors. Light grays, the cooler spectrum of the color scheme. What's real common now, and I know we're going to cover that in a bit, is warmer colors seem to be the thing. So, but I can look at a color. I can usually look at a color chip, a small 2x2 color chip, and tell you what it's going to look like on the wall.
So you're the only guy in the world that can do that. I mean, that is stressful in my mind.
After 30 years of doing it and using products, I kind of have an idea of when I hold something up, I can look at it in certain light and I can pick out things that a lot of people can't. Somebody will put a color up and I say, yeah, I see some blue in there, or I see a green tint, or I see a pink. When you get into beiges, especially, or grays, that's where you really have to be careful because if you get into grays and pink and beiges, they have a tendency to come out blue or pink. And when you're looking at that chip and all of a sudden it's on a 40-foot wall, that's kind of, so most of my builders leave it to me to deal with the homeowner on a color scheme.
Yeah.
And if it's something that just absolutely stands out and says, it screams at me, no, don't do this, I have no problem telling people that. We also do mock-ups for customers on pieces of sheetrock. I usually scab a couple pieces of rock off of every job, and we'll do a 3x3 mock-up and put it in the house so the customer can actually see it. And we can move it around, and we can move it around in the house and in the lighting in the house, so they can see how it's going to be affected by sunlight in a hallway, in a closet, that type of thing. So that's the best way. That's the best way to handle that situation.
Yeah, much better than a Band-Aid shear strip size
exactly.
that only Scott Arnold can visualize on an entire room. What is the process? Customer gives you a call. They call Scott Arnold Painting. They want an estimate. Where do we go from there? Take us through how that all works.
First call, I usually just do a brief. They'll call me and they may want an estimate or may just want to find out availability.
Yeah, sure.
And I just tell them, listen, we'll set up an appointment. I'll work at your convenience. I'm available from 7 o'clock in the morning till usually 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Go in, meet with the customer, kind of get an idea what they have. I look the project over. I tell them I'll get back to you usually within 24 to 48 hours because I like to take at least overnight to process what I've seen, so I give them an accurate bid. Yeah. And I'm not hitting them with extras at the end of the job. And, well, I didn't anticipate this. I didn't anticipate that. And you got to be careful with that. There's a lot of guys that'll give you a low ball bid, and then all of a sudden they'll hand you the final bill at the end of the job, and people look at it and go, well, this, and this we didn't anticipate. So if I have about 48 hours, I can generally process it and get within where a number I feel comfortable with. Because I'm not in business. I'm in business like every other business to make money. And I try to be fair with my bids, but I also know what I need to make on a job for my business to be profitable.
Yeah. And Lordy, I've been there. I wish I'd have known you about 14 or 15 years ago, and we'll leave that one. We'll leave that at that. What are some of the major signs you look for determining how badly a home or business needs? Yeah, you're going to get calls, customers. They just want to change, mm-hmm. But at the same time, what do you look for to determine how badly a home or business might need repairing or repainting? I'm sorry, that maybe the average customer might not notice or realize.
One of the first things you want to look for is what we call chalking or paint fading. That's generally the first sign of paint issues on an exterior anyhow. If you see your caulk failing around your windows or your trim, now you're starting to get to a point where that really needs to be dealt with rather rapidly, because that's the sign that's the next step. And then if you see paint peeling or flaking off, you've probably waited a little bit too long. And it's, if you've just got chalking or fading, well, you generally can do a quick power wash on it, get that surface clean and get it prepped and ready to go. And we can just put a couple coats of paint on it and it's ready to go. If we have to start digging caulk out and replacing caulk and doing scraping and sanding and repriming, every step costs money.
Yeah.
So these are, one of the first things I would tell you, most homeowners, is run down to Walmart or Shopko or Costco or Lowe's or Home Depot and pick up an inexpensive power washer. 1,500 to 1,700 PSI is perfect. Rinse your house off once a year. Get that dust and that dirt and that chalking off of there. Because at our elevation, the sun rays really, once that process starts happening, it goes from not bad to worse to catastrophic in just a matter of a couple of years. If you keep it clean, just think about the ash when we have these fires, how much ash and dust sits on your house. If you get that off, you're gonna make your paint job last a lot longer. So,
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO, and our guest Scott Arnold, owner of Scott Arnold Painting. Common misconceptions, Scott, about interior paint jobs. I'm guessing the customers that think, you'll be done in about an hour. You got every color imaginable on the palette. Things like that. Again, it goes back to being diplomatic, but
right.
you've got to manage customer expectations.
Right. Yeah. And I try to that's one of the things when we meet with the customer, I try to get inside their head, figure out exactly. Some people just want a quick paint job and freshen things up. Other people want a little more detail work on it. So it's just kind of getting to know your customer, developing as quickly as you can, developing a good rapport with them so they trust you and you trust them.
Yeah.
It can be, we just completed a project out in Houston for some people and they wanted to repaint. They had a very nice home and she was very explicit about what she wanted and what she expected. And I told her we can meet that need. And we left yesterday and it was, thanks, come again. We're calling you this spring for a repaint.
Beautiful.
So, and it's just, it just kind of depends. Some people, like I say, are just happy with, pop a quick coat of paint on it and be done. This customer wanted basically that. And I said, well, I'd really feel more comfortable on this home that if we do two coats, and on it, because I think it's going to take two coats to cover properly so we get a nice even sheen and finish all the way across. And I did a couple rooms with two coats. And it was a little more money because it was a second coat. But after I did two rooms for her, she's, I'm just so happy that you talked us into using two coats. It just looks so much better.
Yeah.
It's so much more even of a coat, and the sheen all matches and everything flows together. So,
well, and you use the customer in Houston, the one you just finished up, as an example. You probably appreciate somebody that does have, precise but not unmanageable ideas of what they want done. Gives you a much clearer definition of where you need to go, what you need to do, and how you need to handle it.
Right.
That's probably a great kind of customer.
And I do run into that, people that aren't quite sure what they want, color scheme, that type of thing. And I always tell people, listen, we'll put the first, and this is another reason I like to do two coats. We'll put the first coat on. If it's something you just really can't live with, now's the time to change it because we've got to do one more coat anyhow. So let's find something that's close and we can cover this up and redo it. And I try to be flexible with my customers as much as possible within the realm of the amount of money they want to spend.
Exactly.
And that's, that's kind of how we roll with it. I like my customers to be as close to 100% satisfied as they can. I am only human, so I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And if there's any doubt about that, you can ask my wife. She would be more than happy to testify to that.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Scott Arnold of Scott Arnold Painting. Also, thanks to some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring you the show every week here on News Talk KGVO. Miles Link with Opportunity Bank of Montana. Rob Fleming at Man Mortgage, along with Carol Blodgett at MakeItMissoula.com. And back to Scott Arnold here. Prep work. You mentioned power washing, Scott, for exteriors. Are there suggestions you give customers that they can do ahead of time, which might save some time and maybe a little money before you take on a job?
Power washing is one that most homeowners can handle. I'm not asking you to get on. A power washer is not a sandblaster. That's the first thing people need to understand. Just if you can rinse the bulk of the dirt and the dust and the grime off your house, and you're capable of doing that, I would recommend you doing it. And like I said, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money. A couple $100 will get you into something that's going to do the job just fine and dandy.
Good.
So you can do that if you're competent enough and have a little bit of a background. I don't care if the customer does some caulking and maybe some scraping or sanding. The one thing I do tell people is I kind of discourage people from trying to caulk because it's real easy to, if you're not real good at it and careful and take your time, it can make a mess out of things that can really will really regret later down the road when the paint job's done. But the scraping and the sanding and the priming and stuff like that I prefer to do. But and if you're capable, if you want to do the masking, that type of prep, I have no problem with that. But when it comes to the act, some things I prefer not to, and I will evaluate each customer individually and see, I can assign them duties to do within the realm of what I think they're capable of doing that will be up to my standards.
Where does caulking go wrong? People use too much.
Generally, that's what happens. Yeah, they use too much. Generally, that's what happens.
That would be me.
And it happens to be. And then they try to wipe it out with their finger, and they just make it goes. It goes in places it's not supposed to go, and then you're trying to clean it up, and so that's one that you have to be pretty competent. I realize everybody thinks that running a caulk gun is brain dead work, and it kind of is brain dead work, but there is a bit of a skill involved in doing it properly.
A caulking tutorial smack dab in the middle of Missoula Real Estate Today. I like that. Do you see trends in homeowner or business owner interest in terms of colors and styles, types of materials, quality of paint or the type they want to use, things like that?
The one thing I have noticed is we're seeing in the commercial end of it, especially businesses, they like to see a lot more bolder colors.
Okay.
Kind of make their interior or an exterior wall pop. There are, some of these upper homes, people like to do something real bold on an accent wall or something like that. That's one thing that, the deep greens or the bright, I wouldn't say it, but like maroon burgundy colors, almost like a grizz color on a wall.
Yeah.
And the first few times I did it, I was like, oh man, I just don't know that I like that. And then then when the whole project's done, I stepped back and looked at it and going, you know what, that looks pretty good. I kind of like that. In fact, in our house, we did a couple of accent walls in a deep green and a deep burgundy color that we really liked. So,
not asking you to do an endorsement, but do you have favorite brands of paints, stains, etc.? And if so, why?
Well, and I do. I generally tend to stick with the nationwide the national corporations that produce paint.
Mm-hmm.
Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore. Anyone, Pittsburgh Paints, any one of those brands that have been around for over 100 years, most of those companies have been. They generally have a huge color palette that you can choose from. Those companies tend to, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, any of those companies, when they come out with a new product, they put it on a substrate and they put it outside for 3 or 4 years to test its wear and durability before they're going to put it on the market. So it undergoes almost everything that you're going to see in the outside, the weather-wise. So those and I like those because, like I said, they've been around forever. The color palettes are universal through all their stores. So if you go to the store and you get a color, let's say you pick up 2 gallons, you need another gallon, you can go back in and they can shoot that color for you. You're going to see the same people all the time. They're going to know what you want. There might be a tiny bit of variation in the color.
Yeah.
But it's going to be pretty much cut and dry because it's a corporate deal.
I'll bet that process is interesting. I'll bet it's interesting to see. I got to believe that they accidentally discover a color from time to time, like, well, let's put one more tablespoon of this in and see what happens. Whoa.
Yeah. And that is kind of, and they, they have these little machines that they put up to a 64th of an ounce of colorant. And surprisingly enough, you would be amazed at the difference, just like 1/64th of an ounce of their tint bases, which can change the color. And I do adapt some because I have the ability and some stuff that I can use that I can tweak some colors on the site. So if the customer I'd like to have it, another, just a little bit, and I'll put a couple drops of maybe a black or a red in it to alter it a little bit. And it goes from, I'm not sure about it. Wow, I really like that.
Yeah.
So that's it. And the greatest thing I like about those companies mostly is that no matter where you are, you can, if I'm working out of town, I can go to the Sherwin-Williams in Lewistown, or I can go to the one in Hamilton, and I can get the exact same products and the exact same colors and guaranteed. So it's a convenience factor for me more than anything.
I think the last time you were on the show, you brought up exact same colors, that if you go with a color that's a little bit unique, avant-garde, whatever, and you want to do some touch-up or, work like that, you better be able to find that exact same color with the, artsy, craftsy name to it, because you're going to notice the difference.
You will notice the difference.
Yeah.
And I even recommend people, recommend people that when you paint, whatever you're going to do, always order an extra gallon more than you think, because it comes out and it does come out in tint lots, so there will be a minor variation even in the same colors if the batch is a little different. So always keep yourself at least a half a gallon extra of touch-ups. I try to leave the customer at least a gallon. So if something bad happens, the dog gets in the house and scratches up the wall, you can repaint the whole wall rather than just touch up one spot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I recommend to people. Always get a little extra. Paint people, I tell people, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, paint is cheap. I granted it's $30 or $40 or $50 a gallon. I understand that. That seems like a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're paying $6,000 to have your house repainted, what's $50?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Even your industry, the paint industry, has periods where there can be a lot of changes going on. You experiencing any of that right now?
Boy, this is something I've never seen. The availability of labor right now is just trying to find people that want to work or that are competent to work is a real challenge for everybody in the construction industry right now. Availability of product. We're suffering the same things that everybody. You're finding out at Christmas time. This is a tough year. So we have that issue to deal with because, and this kind of rolls back to the labor thing. Our schedule on our new construction stuff is out the window. And I've got a project that we were supposed to be painting the inside on. It's a brand new home, and it was supposed to start September, October, and we're getting ready to start painting it right after Christmas. So we're basically 3 months behind schedule on it. So, which kind of throws a wrench in my scheduling around some other stuff because I have to try and squeeze those in between. Yeah. And I try to give all my customers enough time. I usually don't schedule anything. If I tell you I'm going to be here for 7 days, I'm not going to pull off for a day or two to go do something else unless an absolute crazy emergency happens.
Yeah.
But yeah. When you're scheduled on our schedule, we're there until your project is complete. Unless it's going to be like a 3 or 4 week project, then I may have to pull off for a few days. But yeah, we try to commit to each customer individually, and I try to schedule things so I don't have a conflict.
Well, and I think customers really, really appreciate that too. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. Our guest, Scott Arnold Painting, and other services. You have a finishing shop as well. What all gets done there?
Yeah, we do, and we finish trim, doors. Right now, as a matter of fact, there's a gentleman that was doing a small remodel, and he wanted to get some exterior stuff done, and there was just no way we could get it done before the weather changed. So he finally got his product. It's in our shop starting today. I'll be in there doing some exterior siding, trying to get that pushed out so he can get the exterior of his project wrapped up here in a few days. So we do paint grade stuff. We do stain and lacquer work. We strive for cabinet grade quality on all of our stuff that comes out of the shop. Just as a note, I do not finish cabinets, but we do cabinet grade finish on all of our woodwork and all the trim. That's what we strive for. Again, we're not perfect, but that's what we strive for.
Nice. All right. Let's get back to exterior work. Your estimated time to resume, and I'm guessing we talked about this a little bit at the top of the show. Want to get back to it. I'm guessing you're already taking appointments for that now, huh?
Actually, we are at this point, thanks to our wonderful advertising partner.
Your rates are going to go up if you keep that up, you know.
Our wonderful advertising partner is,
we appreciate
because
you.
of you guys, we have already booked out. I have 6 jobs booked out right now with the potential for 3 more that I have yet to get a bid for. I've told the people we are in the process right now. I have to reevaluate some bids. We're informed that we're going to take about a 12% price increase on materials beginning February 1st. So I have to readjust those pricing. So that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, we at this point right now, we're probably booked out till the first week of July. And I'm assuming that we'll probably by the way things are rolling right now, we'll probably be booked out till August or maybe September here, probably within the next 2 months.
Moral of that story, if you're thinking about an exterior paint job, it wouldn't be the worst idea to get a hold of you as soon as possible, right?
Yeah, that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah. We'll get to contact information here in a second. But besides being your own boss, Scott Arnold of Scott Arnold Painting, what is it about the profession that gives you a lot of satisfaction?
My big thing is a lot of people have jobs where they just go home or they get it done at the end of the day and wonder, did I get anything done today?
Yeah.
I have the luxury of doing something and being done at the end of the day and look back and go, yeah, I got that done. And some days I look back and go, man, that's all I got done today. But I did. You can see the results of what you get done. And that's one of the biggest things that I like. And then also I just love my customers to be happy. I try to keep my ego in check as much as possible. But I just love it when people come up to me and say, "Oh, my house looks so good. We just are so happy that you came and did this for us."
Yeah.
And some of these people, I mean, I've developed actually with some of the customers, I've developed relationships over the years, and we've actually become kind of friends. So, and that's always a bonus, you know. And they recommend me to people all the time, and I'll get calls from some of them. And 3 years ago, you painted our house. Can you come out and give us a bid on the exterior? Or, we were wondering, we have a good friend of ours that's looking for a painter. Can we give him your name? Are you available to do it? And I mean, that just makes my whole day for me. It just kind of gives me a smile on my face and a song in my heart, I guess, for being sappy. But yeah.
Hey, well said. There's nothing wrong with testimonials and referrals and all of that. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our thanks to Scott Arnold of Scott Arnold Painting, who came in to do the show this week. And Scott, if folks want to get on the list and get a hold of you for estimates and jobs, interior or exterior, how do we go about that?
You can call me at area code 406-381-8545, and that's my direct line. It's on from about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 7 o'clock at night, or you can send me a text message at that number, and then later down the road, if we come to something, I can give you an email address. I prefer to keep that under my hat as much as possible. But yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me, and it's on. My phone's on 7 days a week, pretty much. So the only time you won't get a hold of me is Sunday mornings between 9 and 2. I'm usually at church with my lovely wife, so that's what we do on Sundays. But
great having you back on the show. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Danny. It's been a pleasure as usual.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. For a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit MoveToMissoula.com. That's move2Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.